Do you ever feel that invisible hand holding you back, whispering doubts in your ear, stopping you just short of your dreams? That gnawing sensation isn't just in your head. It's the pervasive force of fear, a silent saboteur that keeps countless individuals from unlocking their true potential. But imagine a world where you could not only recognize this force, but actively dismantle its power, replacing crippling apprehension with unshakable confidence. For decades, the timeless wisdom of Dale Carnegie has illuminated this very path, transforming ordinary lives into extraordinary journeys of courage and self-mastery. Today, we're diving deep into Carnegie's revolutionary insights, uncovering practical strategies that don't just tell you about courage, but show you precisely how to build it, brick by confident brick. This isn't just another discussion, it's an invitation to a profound shift in how you navigate challenges, interact with the world, and ultimately realize the aspirations you thought were out of reach. So, lean in close and prepare to transform your mindset, because every piece of advice in this video is a step towards a bolder, more empowered you. Don't miss a single moment of this transformative journey. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's unlock your inner courage together. 1. The nature of fear and how it holds us back. The concept of fear, in its broadest sense, is often misconstrued. It's not merely a fleeting emotion, it's a deeply ingrained response that shapes our behavior, limits our potential, and, if left unchecked, can define the very boundaries of our existence. Dale Carnegie, with his keen understanding of human psychology, recognized that fear is a powerful, yet often irrational force. It's not just the big, dramatic fears like public speaking or flying. It's also the subtle, everyday anxieties. The fear of saying the wrong thing, the fear of appearing foolish, the fear of failing a small task. These seemingly minor fears coalesce, forming an invisible, self-imposed prison. The reason fear holds us back so effectively lies in its deceptive nature. It whispers promises of safety and comfort if only we stay within our perceived boundaries. It convinces us that the unknown is inherently dangerous, that venturing beyond the familiar guarantees pain or disappointment. This internal narrative, if unchallenged, leads to a pervasive pattern of avoidance. We sidestep opportunities, decline invitations, postpone important decisions, and shy away from challenges, all in a subconscious effort to evade the discomfort and potential perceived threat that fear presents. This avoidance is a vicious cycle. Each time we successfully avoid a feared situation, our brain registers it as a victory for the fear. It reinforces the notion that the fear was indeed valid and that avoiding it was the correct protective action. This positive reinforcement, however, is detrimental to our growth. It strengthens the neural pathways associated with avoidance, making it easier and more automatic to choose retreat in the future. Over time, this consistent pattern of avoidance grants the fear an ever-increasing dominion over our lives, shrinking our world, stifling our creativity, and ultimately diminishing our potential. Carnegie understood this deeply flawed logic. He observed that people unwittingly become architects of their own limitations by consistently feeding their fears through inaction. The comfortable stagnation offered by fear, though seemingly safe, is ultimately a form of slow, unfulfilled decline. It keeps us from experiencing new successes, discovering hidden talents, and forging stronger, more resilient versions of ourselves. Breaking this cycle requires not just understanding fear, but actively challenging its perceived authority. It demands a conscious effort to dismantle the mental fortresses we've allowed fear to erect around our capabilities. 2. Facing fear directly. Dale Carnegie's philosophy on conquering fear was remarkably straightforward, yet profoundly effective. The only genuine path to liberation from fear's grasp is to confront it head-on. This isn't an endorsement of reckless behavior, but rather a strategic and courageous engagement with the very source of our apprehension. To illustrate this powerful principle, let's delve deeper into one of the most universally experienced fears, the fear of rejection. Whether it's mustering the courage to ask someone for a date, submitting an application for a dream job, pitching an innovative idea in a high-stakes meeting, or even just offering an opinion in a group discussion, the possibility of being told no can feel like a direct assault on our personal worth. Society often conditions us to view rejection as a personal failing, a definitive statement about our inadequacy. We internalize it, allowing it to wound our ego and deflate our self-esteem. However, Carnegie's perspective invites us to fundamentally reframe this experience. He emphasized that rejection is not, and never has been, a judgment on your inherent value. It is simply an outcome, a natural and unavoidable consequence of putting yourself out there, of daring to engage with life beyond the protective shell of your comfort zone. When we consciously choose to avoid situations where rejection is a possibility, be it social interactions, career opportunities, or creative pursuits, we inadvertently bestow immense power upon that very fear. It gains the authority to dictate our choices, to narrow our horizons, and to keep us from pursuing what we truly desire. We become prisoners of what-ifs, constantly imagining worst-case scenarios that often never materialize, or if they do, are rarely as catastrophic as our anxious minds predict. Carnegie argued that the antidote to this self-imposed limitation lies in practice. By deliberately and repeatedly exposing ourselves to the possibility of rejection, even in small doses, we begin a process of desensitization. Consider the individual who, despite their apprehension, decides to apply for a job they feel underqualified for, or approaches someone they admire for a coffee meeting. Each act of courage, regardless of the immediate outcome, chips away at the fear's foundation. You begin to realize that rejection, while perhaps initially uncomfortable, is not an ending. It is merely a data point, a piece of feedback, or simply one step in a much longer and richer journey. It doesn't define you, it informs you. Carnegie's profound insight was that action diminishes fear. The moment you choose to act in the face of your fear, you create a psychological shift. You move from a state of passive anxiety to one of active engagement. In that very act, you discover that the fear is often far less formidable than your imagination had made it out to be. It's not an insurmountable obstacle to be avoided at all costs. It's an experience to be processed, learned from, and ultimately moved through. This fundamental understanding liberates us, transforming fear from a paralyzing monster into a mere hurdle on the path to growth and achievement. 3. Changing our perspective on fear. One of the most foundational and transformative philosophies within Dale Carnegie's extensive body of work on mastering oneself is the profound importance of changing our perspective on fear. This isn't merely about adopting a more optimistic outlook. It's about a fundamental re-evaluation of what fear signifies in our lives. Instead of instinctively perceiving fear as a debilitating, obstructive force, a red light signaling stop or danger, Carnegie masterfully encourages us to recalibrate our understanding, to see fear as a powerful, albeit uncomfortable, opportunity for profound growth. He saw fear not as an enemy to be vanquished in every instance, but often as a valuable messenger, a clear indicator that we are on the precipice of stepping beyond our accustomed boundaries, challenging the very limits of our comfort zone, and engaging in the vital process of self-expansion. It's a sign that we are reaching, striving, and daring to evolve. Carnegie frequently imparted a seemingly simple, yet incredibly powerful lesson. The only way to deal with fear is to face it. This adage, while direct, often elicits misinterpretation. It does not advocate for irrational recklessness, nor does it imply ignoring legitimate risks inherent in a given situation. On the contrary, it means confronting the fear with a clear-eyed awareness, underpinned by the profound conviction that you possess the inner resources, resilience, and adaptability to handle whatever unfolds. It's about cultivating an inner certainty that, regardless of the outcome, you will learn, adapt, and ultimately emerge stronger. When we consciously choose to shift our perception of fear, its very nature transforms. It ceases to be solely about primal survival, about avoiding pain or safeguarding ourselves from perceived threats. Instead, it becomes fundamentally about growth. It becomes a catalyst for self-discovery, a proving ground for our capabilities, and a vital component in our journey towards a more fulfilled and expansive existence. For example, consider the widespread fear of embarking on a significant new venture, such as starting a new business. This particular fear is notoriously paralyzing, often trapping individuals in an endless loop of overthinking, second-guessing, and analysis paralysis. The sheer weight of potential risks, responsibilities, and the possibility of failure can become so overwhelming that the dream remains just that, a dream, perpetually deferred. Carnegie's insightful advice here would be to meticulously reframe the entire situation. Instead of allowing the mind to dwell obsessively on the myriad things that could potentially go awry, the market downturns, the competitive pressures, the financial losses, he would urge a deliberate shift in focus. The emphasis should instead be placed squarely on what you can control, on the actionable steps within your immediate influence. This reframing involves asking incisive questions. What tangible, manageable steps can I take today, this week, to move demonstrably closer to my overarching goal? This might involve initiating market research, engaging in conversations with potential customers to gauge interest, or even the seemingly mundane act of drafting a foundational business plan. The profound psychological impact of this reorientation is that the very act of taking even one concrete, deliberate step forward transforms the amorphous, overwhelming dread of starting a business into a series of manageable challenges. Fear, in this reframed context, becomes not a roadblock but a series of puzzles to solve, each solution building momentum and confidence. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating. It enables you to transition from a debilitating state of chronic worry and hesitant stagnation to one of proactive action and burgeoning confidence. Fear, when viewed through this new lens, evolves into a unique opportunity, an invaluable chance to validate your own capabilities, to demonstrate your resilience in the face of uncertainty, and ultimately, to emerge from the experience not only unscathed, but demonstrably stronger and more adept than before. 4. Fear as an opportunity for growth. Expanding on the transformative power of perspective, Dale Carnegie consistently championed the idea that fear is not inherently negative. It is, in fact, a powerful signal for growth. This deeper understanding encourages us to view those moments of apprehension not as roadblocks but as crucial junctures for personal evolution. When we experience fear, it's often because we're contemplating an action or a situation that lies just beyond the comfortable confines of our known abilities or experiences. It's the universe, or perhaps our subconscious, nudging us towards unexplored territory. Consider the example of an individual with a brilliant idea for a new business, yet consumed by the overwhelming fear of its launch. This fear, often a complex cocktail of financial insecurity, fear of failure, fear of judgment, and the sheer unknown, frequently leads to what is known as analysis paralysis. The person might spend months, even years, trapped in a cycle of endless research, meticulous planning, and perpetual deferral, constantly waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. This paralysis stems from an acute focus on the vast, uncontrollable future and all its potential pitfalls. Carnegie's genius lay in his ability to distill complex psychological barriers into actionable strategies. He would counsel such an individual to cease the unproductive mental rumination and instead embark on a deliberate process of reframing the challenge. Instead of obsessing over the entire mountain range of starting a business, focus intently on identifying the next single actionable step that can be taken right now. This approach radically changes the emotional landscape. The immense amorphous fear of starting a business suddenly becomes the manageable anxiety of making a phone call or drafting an initial email. The questions shift from "what if I fail" to "what can I do today to learn more?" or "who can I speak with to gain insights?" This practical, incremental approach breaks down the monolithic fear into a series of smaller, more digestible tasks. Carnegie understood that the act of taking even 1 minute deliberate step forward has a profound psychological effect. It disrupts the static grip of fear and initiates a sense of momentum. When you complete that first step, perhaps conducting preliminary market research, identifying a potential mentor, or simply outlining the initial features of your product, you accomplish something tangible. This small accomplishment generates a small win, which Carnegie recognized as a powerful building block of confidence. Each small win provides tangible evidence to your brain that you are capable, that action leads to results, and that the feared outcome is not inevitable. These small victories accumulate, transforming the intimidating prospect of starting a business into a series of manageable challenges. The fear doesn't magically vanish overnight, but its power is severely diminished. It evolves from a paralyzing force into a stimulating catalyst, You begin to see challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as puzzles to be solved, each solution bolstering your belief in your own competence. This continuous process of taking action, achieving small wins and learning from experience helps to transform fear from a source of dread into a robust opportunity for personal and professional growth. It cultivates an unwavering belief in your capacity to face uncertainty, adapt to unforeseen circumstances, and ultimately emerge not just successful in your venture, but significantly stronger, more resilient, and more confident in your ability to navigate life's future challenges. 5. Action as a powerful weapon against fear. When it comes to the formidable task of overcoming fear, Dale Carnegie's teachings unequivocally declare that action is your single most potent weapon. This principle, deceptively simple in its formulation, carries an immense psychological weight. Inaction breeds fear, and action breeds confidence. This isn't merely a catchy slogan, it's a profound insight into the human psyche and the mechanics of conquering apprehension. The more we allow fear to dictate our choices, leading us into a state of paralysis or strategic retreat, the stronger that fear becomes. It entrenches itself, solidifying its hold over our decision-making processes and shrinking the perceived realm of what is possible for us. Conversely, every time we choose to act in the face of fear, even a minuscule, hesitant step, we actively diminish that fear's power. Each deliberate movement chips away at its intimidating facade, eroding its perceived authority over our lives. This concept is incredibly empowering precisely because of its straightforwardness. It posits that the true antidote to fear is not courage born of fearlessness, for true courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the triumph over it, but rather deliberate action. Whether the task before us is a seemingly insignificant chore or a monumental, life-altering leap, the act of taking that first step fundamentally shifts us from a debilitating state of paralysis to an invigorating state of empowerment. Even if your initial move is tentative, imperfect, or barely perceptible, the sheer act of making it is paramount. Carnegie understood that the human mind, left to its own devices in a state of inaction, tends to conjure elaborate and terrifying scenarios. It feeds on uncertainty, fabricating worst-case outcomes that are almost always far more dreadful than reality. This is the breeding ground for anxiety, worry, and doubt. But when we transition from contemplation to execution, even if the execution is flawed, we interrupt this destructive mental loop. We introduce a new element, tangible experience. For instance, consider the common and often overwhelming fear of public speaking. Many individuals would rather endure significant discomfort than stand before an audience. Carnegie's practical advice would be to begin not by envisioning yourself delivering a flawless keynote address to thousands, but by practicing in small, low-stakes environments first. Instead of diving headfirst into a large, intimidating presentation, start with microscopic steps. This could involve speaking aloud in front of a mirror, recording your voice or a short presentation on your phone, or perhaps even practicing your delivery in a small, trusted meeting with supportive colleagues. The crucial element here is the action itself. The more you engage in these incremental acts of practice, the more familiar and less threatening the act of speaking becomes. Each time you complete a small practice session, a micro-win occurs. Your brain registers a successful engagement with the feared activity, and this success gradually decreases the intensity of your fear while simultaneously fostering a burgeoning sense of self-efficacy and confidence. It's a compounding effect. Fear decreases, confidence grows, and the cycle perpetuates itself positively. This principle underscores that the initial barrier to overcome is rarely the magnitude of the task, but rather the inertia of inaction. By consciously choosing to move even slightly, we initiate a powerful transformation. 6. The importance of the first step. Dale Carnegie consistently emphasized that while the journey to overcoming fear and building unwavering confidence may appear daunting, its true beginning lies in the often underestimated power of the first step. This initial action, no matter how insignificant it may seem, is the pivotal catalyst that breaks the inertia of fear and sets in motion a powerful cascade of momentum. Carnegie's insightful observation was that the first step is almost invariably the hardest. This is where the mental battle is fiercest, where procrastination and self-doubt conspire to keep us in a state of comfortable stagnation. Yet, It is precisely this initial act of courage that unlocks the floodgates of potential. Once that first difficult decision is made, once the initial movement is initiated, a profound psychological shift occurs. You begin to gain an intrinsic sense of competence and the burgeoning confidence to take the next subsequent steps, each one feeling incrementally easier than the last. Every small success, every tiny victory over apprehension, inexorably leads to a larger success, slowly but surely eroding the foundations of your fears over time. Let's delve deeper into the pervasive example of the fear of public speaking, a common phobia that paralyzes countless individuals. Carnegie's practical wisdom wouldn't advocate for an immediate plunge into a vast, intimidating arena. Instead, he would meticulously guide you towards a strategic, incremental approach. He would suggest starting with the absolute lowest stakes environments imaginable. This could mean simply practicing your presentation aloud in front of a mirror, allowing you to hear your own voice, observe your gestures, and become accustomed to the sound of your words. The next step might be recording yourself on your phone, which provides objective feedback and helps you identify areas for improvement without the pressure of an audience. Progressing further, you might practice in front of a single trusted friend or family member, someone who offers supportive and constructive feedback. Only after these preparatory stages would Carnegie suggest moving to a small internal team meeting with familiar colleagues, where the stakes are still relatively low, but the experience of addressing a live audience begins to take shape. The brilliance of this graduated exposure lies in its ability to normalize the feared activity. The more you engage in these smaller, less intimidating acts of public speaking, the more familiar the experience becomes. Each time you successfully complete one of these micro-performances, a vital positive feedback loop is established within your brain. Your fear, confronted and navigated successfully, begins to recede. Concurrently, your confidence grows incrementally, fueled by the accumulating evidence of your own capability. This consistent practice, this willingness to repeatedly take that first step in progressively challenging scenarios, leads to a profound internal transformation. The psychological burden associated with public speaking diminishes significantly. Carnegie's core point is that action creates momentum. The sheer act of starting, even imperfectly, is often the greatest hurdle. Many individuals facing the daunting prospect of a new project at work, for instance, spend an inordinate amount of time caught in a cycle of worry and hypothetical negative outcomes. They meticulously plan for every conceivable pitfall, yet paradoxically, this intense preparation often prevents them from ever actually starting. Carnegie would argue that this is a trap. He would emphasize that simply taking the first concrete action, no matter how minor, is what truly initiates the process. This could be drafting a preliminary outline, scheduling an initial meeting to discuss ideas, or even just sending a succinct email to colleagues to introduce the project. The act itself, regardless of its initial perfection, sets the wheels in motion. It transforms the project from an abstract source of anxiety into a tangible entity that can be acted upon. Even if this first attempt yields less than ideal results, the crucial point is that you are moving forward. You are learning, adapting, and proving to yourself that you are capable of action in the face of uncertainty. The courage to initiate, to simply begin, often proves to be the master key that unlocks our dormant potential, propelling us beyond the perceived limitations of our fears and towards unforeseen achievements. 7. The power of positive self-talk. Among the most profound and universally accessible tools for overcoming fear and cultivating an unshakable sense of confidence, Dale Carnegie rigorously highlighted the critical importance of our internal dialogue, the silent, continuous conversation we hold with ourselves. Our thoughts are not merely fleeting mental phenomena, they are powerful architects of our reality. The narratives we construct within our minds profoundly shape our perceptions, influence our emotional states, and ultimately dictate our actions and outcomes. If this internal monologue is perpetually steeped in negativity, if we consistently tell ourselves, "I'm not good enough, I'm bound to fail," or "this fear is too overwhelming for me to conquer," then we are not merely expressing doubt, we are actively and powerfully reinforcing those very beliefs. We are, in essence, programming our own subconscious for failure or stagnation. creating self-fulfilling prophecies of inadequacy. Dale Carnegie was an unwavering believer in the transformative power of positive thinking and deliberate self-affirmation. He understood that the battle against fear is often won or lost, not in the external world, but within the confines of our own minds. He famously declared, "You can conquer almost any fear if you will only make up your mind to do so." This powerful statement encapsulates the core of his philosophy on self-talk. It means that the genesis of overcoming fear is not an external event, but an internal decision, a conscious choice to believe in your own capacity, your resilience, and your ability to navigate challenges. It underscores the profound truth that you possess the inherent power to modify your thought patterns, and by doing so, you fundamentally alter the lens through which you experience and respond to fear. Let's revisit the familiar fear of rejection to illustrate this principle more concretely. In the absence of conscious positive self-talk, an individual facing potential rejection might default to internal narratives such as, "They'll never say yes," "I'm not smart, attractive, capable enough," or "This will just prove I'm a failure." These thoughts amplify anxiety, make the situation feel more daunting, and often lead to avoidance. However, by actively engaging in positive self-talk, the internal narrative shifts dramatically. If you consistently and deliberately remind yourself, "I am worthy of success and respect," "I can handle rejection with grace and learn from it," and "my value is not determined by external validation or a single outcome," then the very sting of rejection begins to dissipate. It ceases to be a crushing blow to your self-worth, and instead becomes just another experience, a data point that contributes to your growth and learning. It transforms from a reason to retreat into a catalyst for further personal development. Carnegie recognized that simply thinking positively isn't enough. It requires a structured, intentional approach. He recommended a deliberate practice of replacing negative thought patterns with empowering positive affirmations. This isn't about blind optimism or denying reality, but about consciously directing your mental energy towards constructive beliefs. This process involves a critical first step, identifying negative thoughts. Become acutely aware of the specific thoughts and internal phrases that arise when fear grips you. These might be automatic, ingrained responses like, "I can't possibly do this," "I'm going to make a fool of myself," or "This is too difficult, I'll definitely fail." Once identified, the next crucial step is to challenge those thoughts, subject them to rigorous scrutiny. Ask yourself, is this thought truly factual? Is failure genuinely the worst possible outcome, or are there lessons to be learned? Have I, in the past, successfully navigated similar fears or challenges, perhaps even surprising myself? This questioning weakens the thought's hold. Finally, and most importantly, replace negative thoughts with positive affirmations. For example, if your default thought is "I'll fail," consciously replace it with a powerful, forward-looking statement such as, "I have the inherent ability to overcome challenges, and I am committed to learning and succeeding," or "I am capable and resourceful, and I will approach this with confidence." Over consistent practice, this conscious shift in mindset has the profound effect of reprogramming your brain. It gradually rewires your neural pathways, training your mind to gravitate towards possibilities, solutions, and positive self-belief, rather than succumbing to the default settings of worry and fear. This transformative practice is not a quick fix, but a sustained discipline that over time fundamentally reshapes your internal landscape, making you more resilient, more confident, and ultimately more empowered to face life's challenges. 8. Replacing negative thoughts with positive affirmations. Building upon the bedrock principle of self-talk, Dale Carnegie provided a practical, actionable roadmap for fundamentally altering our internal mental landscape. The systematic replacement of negative thoughts with empowering positive affirmations. This isn't about naive optimism or simply wishing away problems. It's a profound neuro-linguistic reprogramming of our cognitive framework. The aim is to cultivate a mental environment where self-belief and proactive thinking naturally supersede doubt and fear. The first crucial step in this transformative process is identifying the specific negative thoughts that plague you. This requires a heightened sense of self-awareness. When fear arises or when you face a challenge, pay meticulous attention to the precise internal commentary that begins to play in your mind. These are often deeply ingrained, automatic responses that have been reinforced over years, possibly decades. They might manifest as familiar phrases: I'm not smart enough for this. This is too hard for me. I always mess things up. People will laugh at me, or I'm destined to fail. These thoughts are insidious because they are often accepted as absolute truths, unchallenged and unquestioned. Journaling can be an incredibly effective tool here, allowing you to capture these fleeting negative whispers and bring them into conscious awareness. Once these negative thoughts are identified, the next and perhaps most liberating step is to challenge those thoughts. This is where critical thinking is applied to your own internal narrative. Don't accept these thoughts at face value. Instead, act as a skeptical inquirer, cross-examining their validity. Ask yourself, is this thought absolutely true, or is it merely a familiar pattern? What evidence do I have to support this belief? What evidence exists that contradicts it? Is this thought serving me, or is it holding me back? Even if I've failed before, does that mean I'll fail this time? Or could I learn from past experiences? For instance, if the thought is, I'll fail, challenge it by recalling past instances where you overcame similar difficulties, or even instances where you learned valuable lessons from a less than perfect outcome. This critical examination begins to loosen the grip of the negative thought, exposing its often unfounded nature. The final and most active component of Carnegie's strategy is to replace negative thoughts with positive affirmations. This requires conscious, deliberate effort. An affirmation is not just a wish. It's a powerful, present tense statement that declares a positive belief about yourself or your capabilities. It's about consciously asserting the desired reality into your mental space. For example, if the negative thought identified was, I can't do this, the replacement affirmation could be, I am capable and resourceful, and I will find a way to learn and grow through this challenge. If the thought was, I'll fail, replace it with, I have the ability to overcome obstacles, and I am committed to achieving success. The effectiveness of this practice lies in its consistency and repetition. Neuroscientific research increasingly supports the idea that our brains are remarkably plastic. By consistently replacing old, negative thought patterns with new, positive ones, we begin to literally rewire our neural pathways. This process strengthens the connections associated with positive beliefs and weakens those linked to negative ones. Over time, what initially felt like a forced, deliberate effort becomes more automatic. Your brain becomes reprogrammed to focus instinctively on possibilities, on solutions, and on your inherent strengths, rather than gravitating towards fears, limitations, and perceived weaknesses. This shift in mindset is not merely cosmetic. It profoundly impacts your emotional resilience, your capacity for proactive problem-solving, and your overall sense of self-efficacy. It empowers you to approach challenges not with dread, but with a confident expectation of growth and eventual success. It transforms your inner critic into an inner champion, enabling you to step forward with courage and conviction. 9. Building confidence through small wins. Dale Carnegie understood that the journey of building genuine, lasting confidence is not an instantaneous leap, nor is it often born from a single monumental triumph. Rather, he championed the profound truth that confidence is painstakingly yet powerfully forged through the cumulative effect of a collection of small wins. This incremental approach is not only incredibly rewarding, but also remarkably effective because it aligns with how our brains learn and build self-efficacy. It's easy for us to fall into the trap of believing that true confidence is solely the domain of grand successes. Landing your absolute dream job, delivering a flawlessly articulate presentation to a massive audience, or achieving a widely celebrated public accomplishment. While these achievements certainly boost confidence, Carnegie argued that the bedrock of deep-seated resilient self-belief is actually laid brick by brick through the seemingly insignificant everyday actions we courageously take to confront our fears and step into the unknown. Every single time we consciously choose to face a fear, no matter how minor it may appear to an outside observer, and subsequently take decisive action, we are essentially gathering evidence for our own capability. We are, in effect, proving to ourselves through direct experience that we possess the inner strength and resourcefulness to handle challenges, even those that initially appear daunting. This process operates on a fundamental psychological principle. Success, even on a small scale, reinforces belief in oneself. It's akin to building muscle. You don't achieve peak strength with one massive lift. Instead, It's the consistent incremental effort of numerous smaller lifts that collectively builds power and endurance. Consider the vivid example of a person who is utterly terrified of confrontation. The mere thought of raising their hand to speak up in a meeting, expressing a dissenting opinion, or addressing a minor personal conflict with a friend can cause an almost paralyzing anxiety. Their initial instinct might be to freeze, to remain silent, or to avoid the situation entirely, to avert the perceived discomfort. However, Carnegie's wisdom encourages them to begin with minuscule acts of bravery. This could be something as simple as asking a question in a large group discussion, offering a brief idea during a casual conversation, or politely addressing a very minor, low-stakes disagreement with someone they trust. Each one of these seemingly small acts represents a micro-victory. The individual takes a risk, overcomes their internal hesitation, and successfully navigates the interaction. What happens in these moments is crucial. The brain registers a positive outcome for a previously feared action. This reinforces the neural pathways associated with courage and self-assertion. The discomfort they anticipated often proves to be less severe than imagined, or if it is present, they successfully navigated it. These small acts, consistently practiced, gradually build what Carnegie termed a collection of small wins. Over time, the cumulative effect of these repeated micro-successes is profound. The individual's internal narrative begins to shift. They start to realize through direct personal experience that speaking up isn't inherently catastrophic, that expressing an opinion isn't always met with disdain, and that addressing conflict doesn't automatically lead to disaster. The more they engage in these small acts of courage, the easier and more natural these actions become. The initial apprehension diminishes, replaced by a growing sense of self-efficacy. Eventually, this accumulation of small victories equips them with the confidence and the mental fortitude to handle much larger, more significant challenges. The fear of confrontation, once a formidable barrier, transforms into a manageable aspect of their interpersonal toolkit. Each successful instance helps to firmly cement the belief that they are indeed capable of achieving what they set out to do, and this conviction, forged through consistent action, culminates in a massive and enduring surge of self-confidence. 10. The power of accumulated small victories. The genius of Dale Carnegie's approach to confidence building lies in its recognition of the profound compounding power of accumulated small victories. It's not about one grand leap, but about a consistent series of deliberate incremental steps that, over time, sculpt an unshakable sense of self-belief. This principle is particularly evident when we revisit the example of an individual grappling with a deep-seated fear of confrontation. Initially, the very thought of speaking up in a high-stakes meeting, expressing a dissenting opinion to a superior, or engaging in a difficult conversation with a loved one, triggers an intense physiological and psychological freeze response. The individual might experience a racing heart, shallow breathing, and a mind clouded with anxieties about negative repercussions or personal inadequacy. However, applying Carnegie's wisdom, this person begins their journey not by tackling the most daunting confrontational scenarios, but by engaging in tiny, manageable acts of bravery. Perhaps it starts with simply raising a hand in a large group discussion to ask a clarifying question, an act that might feel terrifying but carries minimal personal risk. This seemingly minor step is a crucial micro-victory. The individual experiences the fear, acts despite it, and survives the experience, often finding that the imagined negative outcomes were far worse than reality. Next, they might progress to offering a brief, albeit perhaps cautious, idea during a casual conversation, or politely yet firmly, articulating a preference to a friend or family member regarding a minor decision. Each of these instances, though small, represents a direct challenge to the fear. The internal dialogue shifts from, "I can't possibly do this," to "I did it and it wasn't so bad." What Carnegie meticulously highlighted is the compounding effect of these repeated small acts of courage. With each successful instance of stepping out of the comfort zone and facing a micro-fear, a positive feedback loop is established within the brain. The individual begins to build tangible evidence of their own resilience and capability. The neural pathways associated with avoidance and anxiety weaken, while those linked to courage, assertiveness, and self-efficacy are strengthened. It's like consistently depositing small sums into a confidence bank account, Over time, these small deposits accumulate into a significant reserve. The core principle that Carnegie articulated is remarkably simple, yet immensely powerful. Every time you overcome a fear, you prove to yourself that you can handle anything. This isn't hyperbole, it's a statement about internal validation. Each successful navigation of a perceived threat, no matter how small, adds a layer of conviction to your belief in your own resourcefulness. The individual who started by asking a simple question in a meeting might, over time, progress to confidently leading a team discussion, expressing a critical viewpoint to management, or even advocating passionately for a cause they believe in. The fear of confrontation doesn't vanish entirely, but its intensity diminishes. And more importantly, the individual's capacity to manage and move through it grows exponentially. This process transforms the individual from someone passively controlled by fear into an active agent of their own growth. They learn to view fear not as a stop sign, but as an indicator that they are at the edge of their current capabilities, poised for expansion. The power of accumulated small victories is that they build not just specific skills, but a fundamental resilient self-image. This confidence is not fragile or dependent on external validation. It is an intrinsic, hard-won conviction in one's ability to face uncertainty, adapt to challenges, and emerge stronger. It teaches us that courage is not a single heroic act, but a continuous journey paved with deliberate, consistent, and often small steps taken in the face of apprehension, leading to a lifetime of personal empowerment and achievement. As you wholeheartedly embrace this profound journey of confronting your fears and diligently cultivating your inner confidence, it is absolutely paramount to internalize a fundamental truth. Life itself is an ongoing journey, not a static destination. Dale Carnegie, with his unparalleled wisdom and deep understanding of human nature, consistently urged us to persist in moving forward relentlessly and courageously, regardless of the size or perceived complexity of the obstacles that inevitably arise in our path. It is a given that fear, in its various guises, will always be a part of the human experience. It is an intrinsic part of our protective mechanisms, hardwired into our very being. However, the transformative insight offered by Carnegie is that the more consistently and directly we choose to confront these fears, the less formidable their control becomes over our lives. Their power diminishes in direct proportion to our willingness to engage with them. This continuous process demands a commitment to persistent forward motion. Take those small, deliberate steps that we've discussed, for it is in these incremental actions that genuine change is forged. And never, under any circumstances, cease the vital process of learning and growing. Each instance where you consciously choose to navigate through a wave of fear rather than retreating from it serves as a powerful affirmation of your capability. In these moments, you are not only building your specific skills, but more crucially, you are fortifying your inherent confidence and strengthening your psychological resilience. These are the internal muscles that allow you to bend without breaking, to adapt in the face of adversity, and to emerge from challenges with renewed strength. Carnegie's enduring wisdom reverberates in his poignant observation. The successful man will profit from his mistakes and try again in a different way. This isn't merely advice for business endeavors, it's a foundational principle for life itself. It speaks to the vital importance of embracing what others might label as failure, not as an endpoint, but as an invaluable, indispensable part of the learning process. Failure, in this enlightened perspective, is not the definitive conclusion. Rather, it is often the beginning of a new path, a crucial inflection point that provides invaluable lessons, sharpens our discernment, and inspires innovative approaches. It is through these experiences, both successes and setbacks, that we truly discover the depth of our inner fortitude. So with these profound insights, consider this vital question. What is that one specific fear you are ready, truly ready to face today? What concrete, actionable step will you commit to taking right now to begin the crucial process of building your enduring confidence? Remember, the path to courage is not paved with passive waiting or hesitant contemplation. It is meticulously paved, stone by courageous stone, with deliberate action. And it all, without exception, begins with that courageous first step. You possess the inherent capacity, the resilience, and the inner strength to embark on this journey. Now take that initial empowering step toward overcoming fear and building a lasting, unshakable confidence that will serve you throughout your entire